Welcome to a contemplative talk number 4 by the silent mystic. These talks so far are not planned in advance, they just happen spontaneously. So, thank you for joining if you're able to. You're invited just to find a comfortable position and sit where you feel relaxed and alert. Closing the eyes. This is really a meditation from which words come out of the silence. It's a chance to sit in silence and hear the message that comes forth from that space of stillness and presence. And as we sit together, we become attuned to the same frequency from which these messages come forth. It won't be a continuous stream of speaking, but rather it's more important to pay attention to the silence and the space between the words. For it is the silence that underlies all sound and all words and all messages. It is born out of the silence. You are born out of the silence. So you are invited to go back within yourself, back to your source. Your source can be found in the silence and solitude of your heart. There may be periods where we are sitting in silence with no words. There may be moments where there are many words spoken, but they are all ultimately the same. So please listen for the silence rather than for the words. For the silence is the common denominator underneath this whole experience. In this world, we are taught that we must be around people, that humans are social animals, and that we need company. We need the company of other humans. We need to be talking. In fact, even when we are in the company of other humans, it is assumed that as long as the humans are talking and exchanging messages back and forth, only then they are considered to be connecting. But if the two humans are sitting in silence, there is an assumption by the world that there is a disconnection. So there's a feeling that one needs to be talking all the time in order to make a connection. So, in this paradigm, in this way of thinking, being in solitude and being in silence is considered to be the worst experience that a human being can have. You might hear these phrases such as, "You don't want to die alone." "I don't want to die alone." But we all die alone. Whether or not there are other people present, ultimately the experience is yours and yours alone. You cannot take anyone with you. You can't take anything with you from this world. You leave this world just as empty-handed as you came into it. And yet there's this perception that one needs to gather a crowd so as to not feel like they are dying alone. There's a fear of accepting this reality that one only ever dies alone and one only ever experiences this life alone. As long as you appear to be a separated human body, separated from other people, you do, in fact, experience this life alone. Even if you are surrounded by people, these other people have their own unique journeys, and they are experiencing this existence in this dream world in their own unique way. People seem to come together for moments of time, and then they disperse and they separate, each one going in its own direction. So truly, everyone is walking alone. The desire to always be around other people, to always have a group of people surrounding oneself, is in itself a need to distract away from this fact that one is always alone, to distract away from the feeling of separation. But in order to go back into the oneness that is our true reality, the paradoxical way to get there is actually to go within the silence, in solitude. Now, it may not be the only way, because our true self, or God, wakes each one up in its own unique way. And for some, it may be a spontaneous awakening that seemingly has no real catalyst, or there may be a catalyst, but it may be something utterly meaningless, such as staring at a flower or watching a cockroach move across the floor. To another person, that would mean nothing, and it would not initiate the same experience of enlightenment. So for each one, their own unique plan of enlightenment is set. And for some who resonate with this message, solitude and silence is the way, but it may not be the way for all, since all wake up in their own unique ways. There is no one uniform solution for waking up each one in this dream. Each one becomes lucid in their own way, and that is up to the true self. It's already been orchestrated and planned. But oftentimes in this world, the individual will grabs a hold of one's own unique spiritual path that may involve a particular piece of writing or religion or teacher or techniques, practices. One grabs a hold of those things with their individual ego will and tries to spread that as a blanket solution for all. The problem with this approach is that the ego or the individual false self's will does not know how to wake itself up or anyone else up from this dream. It is being guided by God or the true self, but the ego itself does not know the way back home. So how can it know the way back home for other humans? You must walk the path in which you are guided. And everyone is guided in their own unique way. No two ways look identical, and yet there is a kind of identification that happens with one's own spiritual path. It is part of this journey as the ego grabs hold of the path in which that person is given to wake up and starts to identify with that path, identifies strongly with that path. And what happens is it starts to become a curriculum, something that can be formalized and taught, turned into a kind of formula, and sold as a product to other seekers in this world. And it may very well be that others resonate with this, or it could be a catalyst when one encounters this method of another. But since no two paths are the same, there is the danger of leading people astray, because everyone's path is perfectly unique. If every single one learned how to follow the inner guidance, learned how to trust the inner guidance, and had the same desire to wake up, then each one would find themselves in a very unique spiritual path. There would be no groups or cults or religions as such. There would only be many people following their own unique path, and that in itself would be the spiritual path. Currently, you have people who are waking up, who have the desire to wake up, and they start searching. They search different paths. They go on a retreat here, they go and take a course or a certification there, and they travel all around the world seeking, trying to find the best method. But the problem with this is that these methods are constructed by someone else who was following their path. And no two paths are alike. They all lead up the same mountain, but each one must find their own unique path. And this is important to finding a sense of autonomy and a sense of inner trust. When one does not fully trust themselves, they put their faith and power, they give their power away to something outside of themselves. And initially, this can be helpful because it helps to set a structure and a way to discipline and motivate the mind to wake up, using teachers and teachings of the past who have inspired many others, who have actually served as a catalyst for others. But when there is a system that is created out of that, it starts to become a more rigid structure, and that rigid structure ends up inhibiting each one's unique expression of awakening. Every form in this universe is awakening, and each spiritual path is as unique as that form. Of course, separation is an illusion, so all forms ultimately have the one underlying ground of being or underlying reality of Brahman, of God, of nirvana, of moksha, of Allah. But as it is seen in the perceptual realm, each form appears to be unique and different. So while the underlying awakening is common to all, because the one being that we all are is awakening, that awakening expresses itself uniquely through each seeming form in this illusory world of time and space. So that means each one's spiritual path is going to look very unique to that particular being. A flower may be awakening, and its awakening is going to look totally unique to that particular flower. It won't even look identical to another flower. Each one has its own fragrance, its own scent, and its own way, its own behavior, its own way of being. And that's what makes awakening so beautiful to witness is to allow each one, each form, to have its full autonomy as each one awakens. There is no blanket solution for each one, because each one has its own unique gifts in the world of form. Those gifts, of course, come from the source. And the source, or God, our true self, is what is supplying that energy for awakening, because it is the true self that is awakening. It is awakening through all of us. So one human might experience this awakening by having an aha moment as they are discovering a scientific truth that transcends anything of science or the human realm of knowledge. Another one might experience the awakening by sitting in silence and living in solitude and deeply getting to know the true self as it emerges from within and is experienced through peace and happiness and contentment. Another one may experience the awakening through an activity of some kind, perhaps they are doing a job or they're doing some kind of physical movement. Perhaps they are a dancer and the spirit is moving through them. And through this motion, they are awakening to their true divine self. So each particular form must be respected for what it is. And each particular form awakens in its own way. Now, the temptation of this process is to fall into a kind of egocentrism that my way is the only way to awaken, that everyone must dance in this way. One starts to feel that they want everybody to experience this awakening. And so they might try to evangelize or impose their experience or ideas onto others. And of course, when you see one who is awakened, that in itself is inspiring to others, and that in itself is influencing others. But it cannot be consciously imposed on others, because each one has its own unique way of awakening back to God. And each one may not even call this as an awakening. They may not even use the word God. They may use entirely different terms. Here in this talk, on this channel, I'm using certain terms to define what is happening across the globe, across the universe, because it is uniform. It's happening across the board to all creatures, to all beings. For that wish, may all beings be happy, be peaceful, and be liberated. each one is awakening, because we are all one. We are all one consciousness. We are all one God, only appearing to be separated. There comes a point of maturing on each one's path where that one picks up their own unique path and starts to move forward. As they start to move forward, they may inspire or influence others to wake up. And for a time, it may be that these others appear to be following that one, but actually, there is no leader or follower here. If anything, those roles are quite temporary. It's only inspiring and influencing each other and serving as catalysts for each other to wake up. But the truth is, everyone is, in fact, waking up at the same time. It just looks different in each being. The flowers are waking up. The grass is waking up. All the trees are waking up. Waking up to what? Our one true divine reality. To who we really are. We are not these forms. We are not these bodies. We are not these thoughts or emotions. We are something else entirely. And this world of form is not our real home. It's simply a world of thoughts, projected thoughts, that when one wakes up, they no longer see forms. They no longer see the perceptual world. As mentioned before, the perceptual world is only experienced through the five senses. Apart from what the five senses tell you, there is no world. If you did not have the five senses, there is no world that you experience. This world is only within your own mind. And the mind has projected the whole thing, the body, the five senses, otherwise called the five sense doors, that feed the mind information about the world, but there is no world out there. It's all just a perception of the mind. When you wake up out of this form, the light of your true being shines through the form. And when that happens, others can see it. Why? Because others are not separate from you. There are no others. The other dream characters in this dream can see you waking up. They can see the light in you. And that light is the light of your true self or God. And that light is so very attractive. People will be drawn to you. But it's only to the extent that they haven't realized it in themselves. If they haven't realized it in themselves, they will appear to follow you. But as I said, that's only temporary. The leading and following is only temporary until that one has lit a spark within themselves. It's as if there is a a matchstick or a log that is on fire, and the other logs wish to have that ignition to be ignited. So they try to get close to this log that's on fire. And once the spark has lit this other log, then they no longer need any catalyst. When the flame of the divine is burning within you, and perhaps it was lit by a catalyst in this world in the form of a leader or even a flower or a cockroach. When it starts burning in you, you no longer need that. And you no longer need anyone to follow the path that has been given you. Everyone is climbing the same mountain. We are just going up using many different creative ways. And the beauty is that the divine gives different ways and different tools to climb up that same mountain. And it's almost like a beautiful game to observe each other as each one is awakening. It may not even appear to be so in some people, but that's because we are seeing them through our eyes. If one has been given the path of sitting in silence and solitude, and they see another who has been given the path of playing a sport at the highest level, it may appear that that one is not awakened, but that's because each one is looking at each other through the eyes of their own self, of their own ego. But see each form, each being as they really are, not as you are, not as you, the ego self, is. But see the divine in each one, because each one is an expression, a unique expression of the divine. So try to see how the awakening is manifesting in each form uniquely. And in that way, you allow each one its own autonomy and its own freedom to awaken according to the higher will, the will of the one. Throughout history in this world, there has been a lot of imposing of beliefs and spiritual paths upon others by force, by convincing, by proselytizing, by invading. And this has proven to be very ineffective. Not only ineffective in creating lasting spiritual awakening, but ineffective in even creating a harmonious or peaceful place from which to awaken. It has created so many wars, so much atrocity, the imposing of one's beliefs or one's group of beliefs, one group's beliefs upon others. It has created so much disharmony. And it has done nothing except to create resistance in those who it has been imposed on. You cannot impose your spiritual path on others, but you can share from your own space, and you can shine a beacon of light from your own space without invading another one's space, without criticizing or judging another one's space. It's just that people have been trained that there are better ways and worse ways. There are good ways to be, there are bad ways to be in this world. But when it comes to awakening, none of those things matter. Someone could awaken by writing a song, and that person could have been a dropout from high school. According to society, that might be considered a bad thing, but ultimately, the only thing that matters is awakening to your true self. And so that one who is considered to be a failure in society has actually succeeded in their spiritual mission through their music, through their unique expression of awakening. I invite you to observe the awakening in each one without using logic necessarily, without asking the verbal question using thoughts, how is awakening manifesting in this one? But rather just observe it, because oftentimes it cannot even be described. In fact, most of the time it is like that. Awakening can't be described in words because the awakening is actually awakening out of words, out of thoughts, out of concepts. This whole world is a world of thought, concepts. The world of time and space is the world of thoughts. But the awakening happens beyond thoughts. You're awakening out of thoughts. The entire dream world is just a bundle of thoughts. It's a projection of thoughts. And to awaken out of the dream world and back to your true self is to leave the world of thoughts behind. So to observe how this awakening is happening in someone, it's simply an awareness or noticing and giving space just to observing that in another without even verbally questioning how is this one awakening. And then by doing so, by becoming aware of how this one is awakening, you will start to respect this one's unique journey. And as you respect this one's unique journey, you will notice that same respect is extended back to you. There will no longer be judgment of why this one doesn't practice this particular technique or meditation, etc. There will just be a curiosity and appreciation for how this one is awakening. When you look for the awakening in others, they will show it to you. When you look for the unconsciousness in others or the ego in others, they will show it to you. It all depends on the eyes from which you are looking. It all depends on the perceiver. It depends on the eye of the beholder. Awakening is in the eye of the beholder. If you are looking through the eyes of the divine, of spirit, of God, then you will see God in another being. You will see God in the trees, in nature, in the animals, in the plants, in any object. But when you look through the eyes of the ego or judgment, criticism, without curiosity that this is a mysterious being that you don't actually know what they're about, judgment reduces this mysterious infinite being down to a concept, down to a kind of two-dimensional caricature. And to do so is to severely limit that person. When you attach labels to anyone or anything, you're looking through the eyes of judgment and to the ego. But instead, if you become curious, seeking to understand what is the mystery behind this being, then you will see that mystery being revealed to you. And you might find that someone whom you might have judged in the past starts revealing to you a certain depth that you've never seen before, simply because you looked at them with curiosity. You looked at them seeking to understand more. The moment you limit your vision of another, then that's what they will show you. But if you expand your vision into the infinite space of I don't know, the I don't know mind, the mind that is curious instead of presumptuous, that mind will see something much more vast and infinite. Become curious about every being in this world as you go through the world, through your day, learn to observe everything without labeling it. We are taught so many labels, that this is a tree, this is an acorn, this is a chipmunk, these are leaves, this is a road, this is a park. We have essentially abstracted everything from its true reality. The true reality is that you don't know what you are looking at. We have even abstracted people and ourselves by using a label. We say, this is my name. I have a first name and a last name, and sometimes even a middle name. Labels upon ourselves. And then we wonder why people cannot see past that. The truth is, you are not your name. You don't have a name in form. You don't have any words to describe you. You are a mysterious, infinite being. And so is everyone else. Learn to look at the world without any labels, simply seeing with curiosity. An artist who draws or paints a scene, if they cannot truly see properly, then they won't be able to draw with very much depth. The one who doesn't see very deeply will draw something that is very much an abstraction of that, what they're looking at. But one who really knows how to look, to see, can draw something which has infinite depth. In the same way, a music artist who creates music, they must learn how to listen to the silence, to listen deeply. And if they don't know how to listen deeply, then their creation will also be an abstraction. They may even end up copying, like stencils, drawing an abstraction, or creating music that's an abstraction. Making everything into a pictogram. But that's not reality. You must learn to see and listen for the infinite being behind all of this. The true artist knows how to see underneath the scene. And not see with their eyes, their physical eyes, but to see with the spiritual eye. They are getting in touch with something in that scene that actually cannot be explained in words. But they're connecting to the divine essence, the ground of being of that scene that they're looking at, and they're able to translate it into a drawing or any work of art. And when someone sees that work of art, it is literally a transmission of the divine that that artist has seen. And that's why some pieces of artwork can literally take someone into a different plane of existence or a different spiritual dimension. And the same thing goes for music too. If the musician is able to listen deeply into the silence of the divine, into the heart of God, and they're able to produce music from that space of the divine, then anyone who hears that music will be transported into that realm, into that dimension where the divine rests. So in this way, different aspects of this universe, of this world, can wake us up. We are waking each other up with our different gifts. The musician is waking up their listeners with their music that is rooted in the divine. The artist is waking up their audience with their vision, what they have seen of the divine. And maybe the form is a superficial covering over that. You must look beyond it. Not with your physical eyes, not with your physical senses, but with your spiritual sight. Look with your spiritual eyes and see the divine, using whatever gifts that you have been given, using whatever spiritual path you have been shown. Perhaps you are a musician, then that is your gift. And someone may have many gifts. They are literally expressing the divine through everything that they do, through their speaking, through their singing, through even their walking. Their very being exudes that self-knowledge. And when others see that person, they can see the light of God shining through them. In fact, every being has the light of God shining through them, but you can only see it from the extent to which you are awakened. The more you become awakened, you can see that this whole world is awakened and that nothing needs to be changed in this world. We don't need to fix anyone. We don't need to change anyone. We don't need to impose our beliefs on anyone or force them to change. Each one has its own way of awakening, and we can just allow each one to bloom in its own time. And we can appreciate that for what it is. If we try to force other people to develop the gifts specifically that we have, that will only create resistance in others because their gifts are different. We can inspire each other, but we cannot walk each other's path. Each one has to walk their own path. In that way, we are all walking alongside each other. None is ahead or behind, but each one is walking their own path alone. But as long as they are connected deeply with the divine within themselves, they will never be lonely. One is only lonely when they are disconnected from their true self. It's impossible to be lonely when you're truly connected. That's why many people say that they feel lonely in a crowd or with other people. It's because they feel disconnected from themselves when they are with other people. Instead, they can focus on connecting within when they are with others. You don't need to worry or fear being alone or lonely. Each one seems to die alone, but they are only ever connected with the divine. And they need to realize that. When they realize that they can never feel lonely. Each one is vertically, directly connected to their higher self, to God. As long as that connection is there, and it is always there, it's just a matter of awareness of it, awareness of that connection. When you are aware of that connection, you can never feel lonely. Loneliness is only a sense of disconnection from your true self. Whenever you do feel lonely, realize that this means you have disconnected from your true self, or you have lost the awareness of your connection with your true self. And ask how you can find your way back to becoming aware of that connection. Ask yourself within. And you may be given guidance to sit in meditation, or perhaps to draw something, or perhaps to write, or to work on something. And just that act in itself will remind you of your connection to the divine. That you've never been separate. Each one has its own time of blooming. Look for that in each other with curiosity, without assuming anything about the other. Every single one is awakening from this dream. You may be surprised what you find when you look for that. You'll find awakening in very unexpected places where you didn't expect it to be, you didn't assume it to be there. Look through the eyes that seek to understand. Walk your own path. The spiritual path requires utmost devotion to one's own path and letting go of the need to control others, to change others. The more you become devoted to your own path, the more you will see that everyone and everything around you is awakening. Thank you for listening. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be awakened and liberated.